Today is lessons on being worthless. We all need to be just a little more worthless. Now, this was a concept I was introduced to at Wizard Academy. Never really thought about it before that, and now it's a core component of my life. And the premise is Westerners, specifically Americans, because of that Puritan background and upbringing and, idle hands are the devil's handiwork, playthings. We are terrible at relaxing and doing nothing. We're just terrible at it. And when we finally do take a break and just sit around and do nothing for a weekend or a day, we feel bad. We feel like we've wasted time and like something's wrong. And I know you're the balanced exception to that rule, but speaking for myself, I'm bad at it. I'm definitely in the workaholic category. But you can tell because in the West, even our hobbies are scored, right? So, I'm gonna have a hobby. What is it? Golf. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna score it, practice it, get better at it, take lessons. Like that's not worthless. That's not play. And what's missing in our lives on the day-to-day typically is not enough time to just play. And if you start scoring it, it's no longer play. If you keep score, it's no longer play. And so when my first year here, I was working my butt off. I was doing 80% of the work for the Wizard Academy stuff, mostly by myself with a little bit of help. And I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. And I was just so tired. And Roy, the founder of this campus, one day said, "Hey, you're going to join me and 3 of my friends in a worthless day." I was like, "What the hell is a worthless day?" And he said, "Okay, here's what a worthless day is. There's lots of ways to do it, but it's got a couple of key components. Number 1, no plan. No plan is allowed. So we're going to meet up with these 3 guys, you and I. The only plan we're allowed to have is what time we're going to meet them and where. And so 9 o'clock, we're going to meet for breakfast at, I can't remember where we met. It was like Caroline's or something like that. We're going to meet for breakfast, and that's the only plan for the whole day. While we're there at breakfast, we're just going to talk about whatever the hell we want with no agenda and no plan for what we're trying to accomplish. And at some point, an idea is going to occur to somebody, and that's going to tell us what we do next and where we go next. And at some point, we're going to need to eat lunch, so we'll figure that out. And at some point, we're going to need to eat dinner, so we'll figure that out. So on one of those worthless dates I did in the early time, we showed up and, I'll tell you that whole story. But second, and this is really important on the rules, and then I'll describe what that worthless day looked like. On the rules, you cannot accomplish anything. Full stop. You can't accomplish any goals. You can't gain value. You can't look for something to take from the day. Your only goal is just to do nothing, to be completely worthless. And we had a motto that was no business, no sports, no problems. That was the motto. You can't talk business, you can't talk about sports, and you can't talk about problems that you have. We're not here to solve. This is not a counseling day. This is just, let's talk about art, or let's talk about that book you read, or let's argue about whether that new movie is bullshit, or let's argue what you think about open concept houses with open concept kitchens and living room areas, and do you think that, hot tubs should be larger than seating for 6, or like just anything, right? As long as you're not accomplishing anything, it's not business, it's not sports, and it's no problems. It just needs to be frivolous, interesting things. The book you just read, why someone chose those shoes to go with that shirt and those pants. But I'm going to describe one of those days to you to hopefully clear it up. And then again, this is a video with a potential call to action. First, we're going to talk about Michter's American, which we haven't talked about for 6 years-ish. But I love this one because it's such a great example of what happens to a bourbon mash bill product when it's only ever aged in used oak. And there are not many people in North America doing used oak aging for what would otherwise be a bourbon. Michter's is one of the only ones, and they call it the unblended American whiskey because they can't call it bourbon, and they use the word unblended to make sure you know this is not a blended American whiskey, because technically right now there's a category in American whiskey where you just put American whiskey on the bottle, and you end up with things like Kessler's, which is mostly vodka. And so what they're trying to tell you is there's no neutral grain spirit in this. It's unblended. So the only thing that makes it not a bourbon is used cask. And that, I think, is really cool. So when you take a stereotypical corn-forward bourbon mash bill and then you put it in used oak, you still get all of those corn notes and that sort of dusty grain, but it's not fighting with barrel tannins and barrel astringency, right? It is, however, doubling down on a lot of the vanillins. So you get this dusty corn grass, but then you get a doubling down of vanilla cream in the nose. Oh, and then in the palate, you get one of the softest, easiest drinking, gentle rollouts of a corn-based whiskey that you might ever have tried before. It's pretty. That's the best way to describe it, I think. It's pretty. And it's not overly sweet, which I kind of like. I like that it's not tannic, but it's also not overly sweet or overly sugared. It's just softer. It is simple. There's a little less complexity going on. But I'm fine with that because what it's accomplishing is this softer, vanilla-forward, gentle approach to a classic bourbon mash bill, and I think that's really cool. And I'm glad that they're still doing it because it wasn't a sure thing that it was always going to be available, and I hope they never stop. Coming back to the nose, there's a little bit of a more phenolic-y kind of, rubber is the wrong word, but sort of this musty note. And again, it just drinks like buttercream with a little bit of wood to it. There's a little dash of water in there. I'm gonna let that sit for a second. It just stays the same in the nose. Oh, nice. On the palate, that gave it just a little more spice, just a little more, little prickliness to it. And because it is 41.7. I probably took it down to 40 with that little drop, but it's great. I love it. There's not a ton to say about this. It's just a really great whiskey and a very unique experience for used oak bourbon mash bill. Very cool. All right, so one of the first Worthless Days I did, here's how the Worthless Day went, just to give you sort of a roadmap. We went to breakfast at this restaurant. We sat there. We ordered obnoxious amounts of food. I think everybody ordered their own like omelets and things like that. And then someone was like, I kind of want a pancake, but I don't want to eat a whole pancake. And so like, screw it. And we ordered 4 kinds of pancakes and everybody just sort of sampled them all. And someone else was like, I heard their cinnamon rolls are real good here. So one person ordered a cinnamon roll and we just refilled coffee. We were there for like 2.5 hours. And as we were wrapping it up, it was, maybe 10, 11 o'clock, and someone was telling a story about this restaurant in town that had a frozen gin and tonic that was just like the coolest thing they'd ever had, and it was super refreshing. And we were like, screw it, we want frozen gin and tonics. So we all got in one car, and we drove to this restaurant that was just now opening for lunch, and we went in, and we said, we don't want a table, we just want 4 frozen gin and tonics. So they gave us 4 frozen gin and tonics, and we sat on the patio and tried some frozen gin and tonics. And then someone else was like, hey, there's this new pub that was opening up in downtown. And I was like, oh, I'm always looking for a good new pub. And so we decided, let's go check out and see if this pub is a real pub or like a gastro pub or a sports bar disguised as a pub. And so we went to this pub, and we all, had a whiskey, and we decided it was more of a sports bar than a pub. And we argued about the difference, what makes sports bars versus pubs, and music loud volume in America versus Scotland. And then someone said, hey, we saw a painting on the wall. So that reminds me of this artist I was reading about that has some of their art being shown in the Blanton's Museum over by campus. And so we all got in the car and went to Blanton's Museum. And we spent a couple of hours roaming around the Blanton's Museum looking at art. And then we decided we were a little bit hungry. And so we stopped by the river to go eat lunch, and we spent a couple hours. And by this point, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we are stuffed, but we feel like swimming. So we go to one of the people's houses who had a pool, and we start testing out who has the best cannonball. And if you've ever watched a bunch of late middle-aged dudes do cannonballs, it's very entertaining. And then we started arguing while we were swimming around about which band made the best use of Rhodes keyboard in modern music. And my arguments were between Radiohead Kid A, the Everything in Its Right Place, and Stevie Wonder Superstition. There were varying discussions. And we decided we needed dinner at about 6, so we went somewhere and found dinner. And this went on until we sort of ended the day and went home. We had no plan for that day other than just roam around doing whatever the hell came to mind and accomplishing nothing of long-term value. But man, it was one of the more relaxing, restful, but with small, stupid goals that I found really entertaining. Now, you can't do that all the time. No one's schedule allows you to do that. Like once a month, let's spend an entire day roaming around, spending a lot of inordinate money on food and things like that. But you can do that like a couple times a year. Say, screw it, next Saturday, that's a worthless day. And you should, because it is revitalizing, and yes. But there's another option, which is a worthless afternoon, which is to find a group of people that you can sort of gather with once a month, preferably once a week, but at minimum once a month on a schedule where you just know on first Fridays, we're all going to meet up at this one location, and we're just going to stay until everybody wants to leave, and we're going to accomplish nothing while we're there. You can't talk about work. This is not networking. You can't talk about problems. You can't talk about business or sports. We're just going to meet up somewhere, sit around, and shoot the shit, have some drinks, enjoy each other's company, and then leave. No plan, no agenda, no goal. And that's called a worthless gathering. And if you can find a way to schedule one of those once a month with a group of people that you respect and you care about and you want to have conversations with, man, is it magical. So at one point, I designed a website because what we had done, and this was about 2014, I think, is we used to have a worthless gathering every single Friday at my office. That sort of died in 2018 when we opened the distillery and we moved it over to the distillery, and then it changed everything. We haven't had it since. Not in the same way. But at the time, we reached out to the Wizard Academy community and said, hey, everybody needs more worthless meetings in their life. If you in your area want to start a regular worthless gathering and follow these rules, then we'll list you on the website. So anybody in our community who lives in the town and wants to find a group of interesting, non-boring people to just sit around and shoot the shit with, anywhere that will have you, bar, restaurant, back deck of someone's house, a walk in the woods, a park, doesn't matter. Then if you'll tell us that you're holding it, we'll put you on the website, and people can go to the website and just see like all of the various worthless gatherings happening in various areas. So I think I'm gonna try to revive that, and I'm gonna start it by hosting a worthless gathering here at Wizard Academy once a month. No plan, no agenda, just shoot the shit, sit around. That's it. I don't know what day of the week it's going to be. It would be a weekday, not a weekend. I don't know, but if you want to host one of those, then I'm going to have a form in the bottom of this video, and I want you to just submit your information. And we will start a conversation where we discuss the only two things I need from you is a location, an agreement that you're going to follow the rules of no business, no problems, no work, no networking, no accomplishing anything, and that you have a predictable frequency. So if you're going to do it, it doesn't have to be every week. It doesn't have to be every month. It could be once a quarter, but it has to be a predictable frequency so that on your listing, we can put how often do they meet every quarter, right? So that's all I need from you. And if this sounds like a really nice, kind of fun idea to explore, let's bring it back. We're going to do it again. Cheers to you, and I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for being worthless enough to spend time watching this video. take just a little bit of time to like and subscribe. It'll help us out.